What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with Tech Daily, and in this video, we're going to be checking out the new Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra. If you didn't already know, Samsung really minimized the box and included accessories for the entire S21 lineup this year. Inside the box here, the first thing we get is a little sheet that says Samsung on it, and underneath that is the phone itself. I obviously got mine in Phantom Black, which I think looks really cool. We'll set it to the side for just a second, and digging a little deeper inside the box, you can see that there's not much else that's included. There's a small little packet here with the SIM ejector tool attached to the outside, and inside you get a stack of paperwork and a USB-C cable, and that's it. Like I said, no other included accessories anymore. So here is the phone itself once again, and if this matte black finish doesn't do it for you, there's also Phantom Silver and some exclusive colors like titanium, navy, and brown that are all made to order. The new S21 Ultra looks kind of similar to previous Samsung flagship devices, but there are a couple of new features, add-ons, and interesting things worth mentioning. First off, in regards to the size, the S21 Ultra is the largest phone in the lineup this year by just a little bit. It's a 6.8-inch device, which certainly puts it on the upper end of the smartphone size spectrum, and if you're curious, here is what the Ultra looks like stacked up against the S21 Plus and the regular S21. Now, interestingly enough, the difference isn't so drastic up against the S21 Plus. That phone is 6.7 inches, so just a tiny bit smaller height-wise. But both these phones are pretty close, honestly. They're about the same width and thickness, obviously just big devices in general. You don't really get a difference until you jump down to the 6.2-inch S21. That phone feels almost small in comparison, though it's still kind of big in its own right. And really this year, with all these phones being well above 6 inches, you're kind of stuck deciding between a big device or a really big device. That's pretty much the lineup this time around. Up front, the S21 Ultra obviously shares the same center hole punch camera cutout design and super slim bezels that we've seen on plenty of other Samsung flagships before, but one other interesting design cue worth noting is that the Ultra actually has a slight curve to the front glass and display, and that's not something you get on the regular S21 or S21 Plus. It's super subtle just along the edges. You might not even notice if you didn't know to look for it. And fortunately, to me, it doesn't feel too different in the hand. I don't find myself like accidentally touching the display on either side because of it. I know not a lot of people like the curved edge on the smartphone displays nowadays, so that's why I wanted to mention it, but to me, I think it's subtle enough to not really be an issue. Around back, the S21 Ultra gets an all-glass rear panel. You get that on the S21 Plus as well, but not on the cheaper regular S21. On this phone though, it's not any nicer or more premium of a material. It's the same sort of soft matte finish frosted glass that we've seen before, and the rest of the phone, the outside edge and the frame, that's a polished aluminum, which I think looks really nice, and that is the same material and design as the entire rest of the S21 lineup. So all in all, you're not really getting any better materials or a different design in going with the Ultra. It's pretty much the same Samsung flagship you're familiar with and that you'd get with most other models as well. Taking a look around, there's nothing on the left side of the phone there, not much up top either, just some microphone holes. On the right are your usual power and volume buttons. On the bottom, there's a SIM card tray that's just a SIM card tray now, no expandable storage here on these phones anymore, which is kind of a bummer. There's the USB-C charging port and speaker down there as well. Up front, there's a secondary speaker in the earpiece for stereo sound, and the out loud listening experience on this device is really great. Here's a quick sample so you can get an idea. Now around back, the camera setup there is probably the thing that stands out most about this S21 Ultra, and for good reason. It's quite the setup. You've got a 108 megapixel main lens, a couple 10 megapixel telephoto lenses for crazy zoom capabilities. There's an ultra wide lens, some additional sensors for video stabilization, and I'll go more in depth with all that in just a second, but I do just want to point out that physically, while the lenses are bigger and there are some additional ones and sensors and things, the camera module on this phone isn't as obnoxious as it maybe was last year on the S20 Ultra. It sticks out about as much as the other S21 devices now. It is still quite a bit wider though, and in the hand, I do think I noticed that sort of top-heavy feel you might get with potentially some extra weight from the chunky camera setup. It's not bad. The phone isn't gonna like slide out of my hand because of it, but it is something that I do notice with this whole thing, so I figured I'd just point that out. The massive 6.8-inch display is a dynamic AMOLED panel that offers both 120Hz and 1440p resolution simultaneously. If you remember last year, the Samsung phones that offered a high refresh rate option and 1440p resolution, like the S20s, they made you choose one or the other. This year, the S21 Ultra allows to have both at the same time, and I think this is just a phenomenal looking display with all the highest settings enabled. You get a 3200 by 1440 resolution at 515 pixels per inch, 1500 nits of max brightness, and it's probably the best display setup on the market right now, given everything it offers. While it is a shame that the lower S21 and S21 Plus devices don't get the higher resolution at all, I think if you're gonna offer it, having it paired with 120Hz altogether is the way to go, and I can sort of see why Samsung offered it just on this S21 Ultra. It's really great, and honestly might be one of the most enticing sets of features about this phone. Underneath the display is a brand new fingerprint setup as well. You do get this on the other S21s, and it's just so incredibly quick. You barely even need to tap your finger on the display and it opens right up. It's really good and a noticeable, significant improvement over previous years. There's also face unlock as well, and that too is very fast. Inside, the S21 Ultra obviously packs the latest 2021 specs, as do all of these new Samsung flagship phones, but you do get a little more in going with this phone instead. The processor is going to be the same, either the Snapdragon 888 or the Qualcomm 2100, but you can get 12 or 16 gigs of RAM versus just 8 on the other S21s, and up to 512 gigabytes of internal storage. So you can really spec this thing out if you want. Obviously, it's already going to be a lightning fast and incredibly powerful device anyway, but there's a ton of potential here to maybe make this one of the most powerful devices you can buy. There's also a slightly larger battery inside this phone as well versus the rest. It's a 5000 milliamp capacity. Now, if you run the 1440p resolution with the high refresh rate at max brightness, the extra battery certainly won't matter. You'll probably even get worse battery life than the rest of the S21s, honestly, at that point. But potentially, this S21 Ultra might be able to last just as long or maybe a little longer than the rest under the right conditions. And finally, let's just briefly talk about all those cameras around back. The setup on this phone, I think, is not only just really ridiculous, but much more refined than last year's S20 Ultra as well. There are a lot of things you get on this phone that you do get on other devices now, including the 8K video recording, but you're gonna get things like enhanced video stabilization, way more potential with the powerful main lens for every shot, and of course there's the 100 times zoom. And just taking a quick sample shot here with all that zoom, in my opinion, this is a much improved and way more usable sort of setup than last year, and I'm really excited to put it to the test. Also, the selfie camera on this phone is quite a bit better than the other S21s as well. You get a 40 megapixel lens up front on this phone, and the results here look amazing as well. All in all, I'm really looking forward to putting this phone to the test in the coming weeks to see what it is capable of. So there you go. Those are all of my initial thoughts and first impressions on this new S21 Ultra. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys later.